Hi. I'm all of a sudden I'm nervous. I shouldn't be nervous. This is so I've done this so many times, but I am Vivian Acquah, the host of Let's Humanize the Workplace. And you might be wondering, who am I? I'm an inclusive workplace wellness advocate, and I talk about and do a lot about workplace well-being intertwined with diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm also the host of Amplify DEI, and I'm going to show you something. Awesome. If my computer is working. Yes, it's working. Um, Last week was a very exciting week and a very challenging week, but I'm not going to address it until I am going to address something with the panel members. So just wait a few seconds before me addressing it. But I'm also going to show you something awesome. And that is in December, I shared with you that I'm starting a group. It's called Amplify DEI Mentoring Circle. It's a place where you can share, you can vent, you can challenge each other, you can learn more about each other. And I know that a lot of people have been asking me so many questions, so I decided to host a webinar next week, Monday, my time, Central European time, 5 p.m. I need to translate it back. I think it's 11 a.m. or 9 a.m. In Eastern. I need to translate it back, but there will be a link, and the link will be bit.ly/ampweb. You can join this webinar to learn more about why the mentoring circle might be good for you, especially if you are an HR professional or you are an internal DEI professional working in an in-company place. Okay, going to the next slide. That's the commercial that I have for myself. Going to the next slide, because today, it will be all about intersectionality. And I realized that not a lot of people are accustomed to intersectionality. So I'm going to share the dry description, the dry meaning. And then afterwards, I'm going to invite my panel members to share their insights and also to ask, to answer all the questions that I have regarding intersectionality and why leaders need to know more about intersectionality, but first a dry description. So intersectionality is a framework for conceptualizing a person, a group of people, or social problem as affected by a number of discriminations and disadvantages. It takes into account people's overlapping identities, experiences in order to understand the complexity of prejudice they face. Okay, now in real people talk. For instance, if a white person, a white man, is earning $1, a black man will be earning 78 cents. A white woman will be earning 74 cents. And a black woman will be earning 64 cents. That's what intersectionality is. Do you see the disadvantage? Do you see the gaps that are in there? So use this example when you are explaining intersectionality. And I'm going to bring my guest speakers up. So bear with me. They are all here because why should leaders care about intersectionality? And I'm going to share their bio. So Yuli Kim, she is an Asian lesbian DEI professional who believes that a sense of belonging is a prerequisite for anyone to perform their best at work. John Carlson is the founder of JD Consults, and John is passionate about people and helping them not only succeed, but to thrive within their organization. And Greg Fontus, who's just become a new dad. He is a gifted communicator, engaging storyteller who has invested over a decade in teaching diversity and leadership principles to college students and emerging leaders. And last but not least, Greg Brooks is an initiative-taking leader and an advocate for driving diversity through inclusion. So everybody is sharing all these bonus words that are speaking to my heart, and that's what I like. And let's start with you, Yuli. Why do we need to humanize the workplace, the virtual workplace?
The virtual workplace. I think for a lot of people, especially marginalized group of people like myself, working, I'm Asian, and then working in the Netherlands predominantly lot of sort of a white environment. Psychological and emotional safety is really important for all of us to be able to just do our job and speak up when we catch something. And I think also with COVID, I think we need a little bit of extra kindness these days, just a little bit,
A little bit more,
well, a lot, a lot. Sometimes I have to take a call with one kid here and the other running around, and then I used to think it was unprofessional. You know, when I saw some kid running around, I was like, oh my God, what's going on? But now I'm in that place, and first couple of weeks I sort of apologize. Oh, sorry. And then people are like, you know what? I have my kid. Luckily, I have my kid sleeping in that room. But if he's up, I will be carrying him. And whether mother or father or grandparents or being in that position, and people started to not just to passively acknowledge, but actively support it. It's okay, you know, like we're all in this together. And that really makes me feel like really, oh, thanks guys. And I can really focus on my presentation or discussion that I'm having with my associates. And it just helps to do, for help me do a good job, and many others. And we work better for that. And so humanization, especially these days, we need to really put emphasis on that.
Thank you. And John?
Yeah, I mean, you talk about employee engagement and humanization. One thing that I'm grateful for 2020 is it's really lifted that kind of veil of mystery that we had, where, you know, it's okay to have families, it's okay to have disruptions, it's okay to have a life outside of work. And not only is it okay, but it's embraced. You know, for me, humanizing the workplace is so important, not only from the just people side, but you know, it's been shown it reduces turnover rates and improves employee morale. So you're going to have better, more efficient, happier employees, and overall just a better, healthier organization.
Definitely. And the fact that you even shared that, yes, we are allowed to have a personal life besides our work life. I mean, come on, we cannot, you know, it's not like we can put on a mask when we are at work and remove that mask when we're going to work, when we're going home. And unfortunately, a lot of people are dealing with this situation, but I'm hoping that having this conversation will open, you know, so many eyes and so many people to see, to look better and to create that special workplace where everybody can be themselves and can feel like a belonging and can be okay when a kid is screaming, or my child is, you know, he was playing outside and I had to remove myself from the video, close the video, because I don't want people to see me standing up wearing my jogging pants. I mean, I am at home. I have to be comfortable as well. But I also have, you know, I have to realize that I am a mother. I am so much more things. And we cannot, you know, just ignore people, ignore their private life as well. So, Greg. You're muted.
I think for me, I'm here. I think for me, it's I don't think it's a matter of why do we need to humanize the workplace. I think it's a matter of needing to normalize the humanization that's within the workplace.
Yes.
Because when we think about the workplace and the cultures that exist, it's made up of humans. It's made up of people and all of the various particularities and identities that they have and they exist. And so I think it's a matter of organizations normalizing that people that work in the company have these identities and these particularities. So I think it's really about normalizing that when I show up into the workspace, I'm bringing all of those things with me. I'm bringing, as a Black male, I'm bringing the history of Blackness in America. I'm bringing the fact that I'm a new dad with my 4-month baby. I'm bringing in, I'm a husband. I'm bringing in my educational experiences, where I'm geographically grew up, my social status, all of those things. I'm bringing that into the space. So it's not a matter of humanizing it, because I bring all that. It's a matter of normalizing that. It's a matter of normalizing the conversations, normalizing the culture that I bring. Normalizing.
Are you changing my show topic?
I'm not changing the show topic. I'm not changing. I am with my colleagues, bringing life to the conversation. And so for me, that's what I believe. It's really more of normalizing that humanization that exists in the workplace.
I'm there with you. Thank you. And Gerald.
Well, thanks again for having me here. And I agree with what everyone has said so far. But I think I've heard Dr. Robbins, he stated that the brain is optimized when it's around people, but not only around people, but around people that care about it. So, and I think when you have an optimized brain, you get engagement. Engagement leads to productivity. And in a workplace, productivity leads to revenue. So I think if you want to break it down to what something that everyone understands is revenue, people equals revenue. The more you care about your people, the more revenue they're going to bring you. So if we humanize the workplace to understand that people are coming from all these different backgrounds, and I want my people to be as engaged as possible so I can get their productivity, so we can then make money, because then when we make more money, then people can get raises. So I think it's more than just, we have to start with the engagement and then just breaking down to the brain, because we're all humans and we all have a brain. And it's one thing that science states is that the brain is hardwired to belong. So I think if we can just start there, and like that's step one, then humanize the workplace to normalize the humanization of the workplace. I really like that, Greg. I think we'll be well on our way.
Yeah, you mentioned something. We all are humans. We all have brains. Last week, something happened where I was questioning what you just shared, but I'll just leave it on the side, because otherwise we will sidetracking. I'm just sharing that. So going to
one thing that the brains feel alike, but I mean there are different tracks. I mean, not everyone can be Einstein.
True. Let's start with you, Gerald. Why should companies care about intersectionality?
Personally, I think this is one of the most important things that we have to understand as leaders. Intersectionality makes you who you are individually. And until we can see each other for me, see me for me. When you look at me, I need you to see Gerald Brooks. I don't need you to see a Black man. I don't need you to see an LGBTQ man. I don't need you to see a Jewish guy. I don't need you to see a veteran. Like, I need you to see Gerald Brooks. And intersectionality is all of those combined, because then, like Greg was mentioning, which mask do I put on? Like, who do I need to support today? Like, oh, well, we're fighting for LGBTQ rights today. Are we fighting for Black rights tomorrow? Veterans the next day? Like, I'm fighting for me every day, and I'm fighting for all of those every day as well. So until you can understand that when you see somebody, you can't bucket. I don't want to be put into a bucket based on what I look like. Like Dr. Martin Luther King said it best, like, we need to be judged based on the character, on our character, not the color of our skin. But it goes deeper than that as well, because our character and then also other things that we identify has to be put into that as well. Like I never, like when I see people, I try and like see them for them. I know everyone talked about the unconscious bias. So when I see a certain thing, like my brain thinks one thing, but I have to untrain that thoughts that I learned from the past to be able to see people for who they are and not be afraid to talk to someone because they don't look like me, or I feel like they might not think like me, because you don't know until you actually have the conversation and experience things with people. And intersectionality is the foundation of understanding who we are as individuals.
Awesome. John.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, a lot of times people, they think of intersectionality as only gender and race intersecting. They forget about things like sexual orientation, ability, age, immigration status, all these different things that can really come into play and are all subject to systems of power that give, privilege to certain people over others. And it takes the work that we've done in the DEI space, it takes it a necessary step further. DEI work as a foundation is great, but to Gerald's point, you have to see people as who they are, every piece of their identity. And as leaders of organization, it's their responsibility to really dismantle these oppressive systems of power.
Yeah, True. Thank you. Julie, I mean, even in your introduction, you made sure that people know that you are Asian, that you are lesbian.
Just in case you haven't noticed.
What else do we need to know more about your intersectionality? Do we need to define our intersectionality on our resume?
I don't know. Like when we talk about intersectionality, like John said, people tend to focus on sort of visible intersectionality or visible diversity, but people sort of not ignore, but we need to kind of unlearn. We need to learn to see the different makeups and characteristics that make who they are. I was just going to give you one example so that I want to use the sort of generation lens in intersectionality. So, well, I'm Japanese, but my wife is American, and I've have many friends in America in the LGBTIQ plus community. And most, let's say, if you're a gay man, age above 50, the word queer, there's some of them even go like, ugh, like, ugh. It's like sort of, it was used as a derogatory term. Oh, he's queer and this. But when you ask Gen Z, they claim like, I'm queer, so what? So the same term, queer, can mean from there to there, completely derogatory to be something to be proud of. So I think leaders should really look into different sort of intersectional lenses to tackle the organizational challenges when it comes to race, gender, sexual orientations, and discrimination. All these matters. When you apply different lenses, intersectional lenses, you can see things from you can have more viewpoints. Yeah. So that's why it's important. I think that's why it's important.
Yeah. It's also important for leaders to know their people. I mean, just hiring somebody to do the job isn't going to help you, especially now when you need your people to survive, or when you need your people to thrive during this lockdown and during building on your company. I would say know your people. Dare to lead your people by, showing your own vulnerability and know them as well. And Greg.
Exactly.
Yeah. When I think about, the caring of intersectionality, right? My mind goes to the construction of that idea of intersectionality, right? When you think of Kimberly Crenshaw and how she created this term, 30 years ago, right? To define the violence and oppression towards Black women, right? It was lifted up to be held as a sort of as a form of accountability, right? To one, identify this is the experiences of Black women, but we need to do something about it. We need to see where the power plays are. We need to see where the intersections, the connections of power and privilege and oppression, all of those exist. So when you think about organizations, companies now, and their why should they care? Because it's a form of accountability. Right? It's a form for them to say, listen, we care about the intersections because we recognize the historical legacies, the historical violence and oppression that have been perpetuated against people of color, races, genders, minority identities, et cetera, et cetera. We should see all of that. And we're acknowledging intersectionality because we want to do something about it. Right? We're not trying to absolve responsibility. We're not trying to turn a blind eye to it. No, we're willing to face these things, challenges head on, face on. Right? So you shouldn't ignore it because
what should they do? Should they state it in their? I mean, I've seen companies making a commitment. Some companies are making real commitments. Some companies, I have some question marks. I'm not going to call them off. I just have some question marks about their true commitment. But do you feel like they need to address intersectionality in similar?
You cut off on that last.
You went on mute. Vivian, you went on mute.
I was using the mouse too often, and now I'm just like, okay. Do companies need to address intersectionality in their commitments?
Yes. I think if you name it, that personally, I think, naming it is a huge thing of of first recognizing that it's a problem and recognizing it that it's a goal, right? You know, in my work, there's this idea that when we talk about social justice, it's both goal and process, right? Oftentimes places will say, okay, these are our diversity goals, and once we meet it, we're woke, we're good. No. Almost cussed on here. No, right? Right. When you think of that, you're supposed to think of social justice and equity and the fight for justice and diversity and inclusion as really something that you continually work towards, right? It's a perpetual process of working towards that. So I'm going to name intersectionality. I'm going to name the issues at hand simply because I know that's the goal that I need to work towards. Even if I meet my diversity metrics, when you start thinking of retention of the employee life cycle, and you start thinking about just the turnover that exists, you have new people coming in your organization on a regular. One new person should be accounted for, right? So organizations need to care about it because it is a goal, it is a process, and they should be able to name it, right? Because when you name it, you're addressing it. You're holding yourself accountable, not just internally, but publicly to your, if you're in the corporate world, your stockholders and the people who own shares, your board. If you're in the educational space, you're holding it accountable to your faculty, your staff, your students, and then everything in between. So I think naming it is what you should do. And I question those that don't name it, because then we can have a conversation about performative DEI, performative allyship, and all of those things.
Snapping and showing the awesome card as well, because I wanted to know what will, just one thing, what is the negative thing that can happen when companies ignore intersectionality? And I'll start with John.
We're seeing it. It's been ignored for so long that we're seeing the result of that. So when you talk about one reason why companies shouldn't ignore it is because we're going to continue to perpetuate what we've been seeing. Consumers or clients, they have access to more information than ever before. And there's a call to action, a demand that organizations start to get these things right. And intersectionality is something that organizations have to get right, because not only is it, to Gerald's point, good for people and revenue, but they have to in order to be sustainable, because clients and customers are demanding it.
And also external stakeholders. What I've seen is that investment banks such as BlackRock or other investment companies are really demanding transparency where they invest their money. And I'm just like, hey, I'm down for that. Please, investors, if you're watching, next time ask for the diversity numbers or figures, because I know that some people are against, some people are for, but we have to start somewhere to showcase this transparency and to show that a company is doing their best as well. So, and Julie.
Yeah, so well, I can give you an example from Japan. So it's the year 2020, and then this supermarket, convenience store, big chain in Japan started running a campaign with one specific sort of a service, Mom's Kitchen. It's called Mom's Kitchen. And so the young high school students started a petition against that. Excuse me, sirs. This is 2020, and then Japan ranked 121st in Global Gender Equality Index out of 153 countries. Yeah. So we're way, way, way behind. So imagine if you run, so this company is spending millions of euros, millions of dollars for this campaign to promote its service. But imagine you had more diverse group in the decision-making, the marketing team, when more women or young professionals, Gen Z to baby boomers, all got together. Is it really important to include this sort of gender stereotyping in this campaign? Or can we more focus on the emotional aspects of having good meal?
Maybe, I totally get that.
Yeah, maybe they ended up choosing Mom's Kitchen in the end, maybe. But they could at least have a more successful campaign or dialogue with the campaign, where it's coming from. But the sad thing is, with this petition, people are still discussing like, oh, like women are overreacting and some feminists are behind them and they're using the young high school women to file this petition. So this is kind of the reality in Japan. So my point is, if you have more diverse group, diverse viewpoints, different viewpoints, whether you're hiring or promoting or running big marketing campaign, like John said, like people still make these mistakes and they lose its people, they lose money, they damage their brands. And so again, intersectional perspective, intersectionality is super important.
Which brings me to another thing, because I love watching Disney and all the other ancient cartoons. But now that I'm a mother, now that I'm doing the work of DEI, I'm having a hard time watching all these cartoons and unfilter my filter or defilter or remove or deactivate my filter. For instance, when I'm looking at Snow White, when I'm looking at Beauty and the Beast, when I'm looking at Mulan, for instance, why do the ladies need to save people? The first Disney movie that I like, where the woman had, the front, the main role, was Brave, and there are so many more. So, do we also need to add intersectionality into cartoons? Because I don't want to watch old cartoons anymore because of this whole thing and because of this whole stereotyping. And I need to, when we are watching, I need to unlearn, tell my child, like, your mother is not going to do that. So this is a cartoon. It's not real life. We're thinking differently, but I'm letting you watch because this is fun. But know that your mother thinks differently, and he understands that. He is trying to do better, but I do feel like cartoons also have an obligation to change certain stories. Greg, because your daughter is growing up, right? Do you want her to watch Snow White in a particular way and think that she needs to be saved?
Well, currently we're on Elmo, and no, absolutely. I would not want that for her. In particular to, I'm thinking more of just the grander scheme of things. Intersectional cartoons, would love to see that, because when we start thinking about the socialization, it happens at that age. It happens at a very young age. The socialization of how we view race and racism, how we view all these other things. It happens in the home. It happens at school. It happens in churches and religious spaces. It happens in all of these various environments, to where that's where the socialization begins. And knowing how Black women have been historically and even modernly in our modern day context been oppressed and marginalized and undervalued and underappreciated, that's not what I want for my daughter. Right. So for me, it's hoping and seeking to disrupt and dismantle those things so that she grows up with a healthy, positive sense of self, right? That's never under a person or never has to play second fiddle to someone else. Yes. So for me, if we had those intersectional cartoons, and hey, I think that might be a great business venture for those who are thinking about that.
I'm just saying, Pixar, if somebody knows Pixar or knows, Disney, knows any big cartoon, even Netflix is now into cartoons, right? Watch what people are sharing here, because this will bring some money in the bank, right, Gerald?
Yes, completely agree. And I think intersectionality, it has to start from the beginning everywhere. I'll go back to the brain. Like, none of us are born biased. Like, you learn a lot. You learn your bias and your stereotypes from the way you're raised, your environment, what you see on TV. So I think, like, just going back to even when I was younger, growing up, you looking at TV, if you were a white person who never seen a Black person, but you seen Black people in movies, they were either in gangs, killing each other, uneducated, single mothers. And so when you meet a Black person, what are you going to think? Oh, you Black female, you must be a single mother with 5 kids on welfare. So if you don't weave those things into from the beginning to end those biases, to start them from the beginning, then we're going to be doing this. It's going to be a circle. So now,
Yep.
like Greg's daughter is going to come up in 20 years, like, well, guess what? I didn't see anyone that looked like me growing up, so I didn't think I can do any of those things. I mean,
Yep.
that goes back even to myself, being a black man in corporate America. I never saw a black man in corporate America, so I didn't think it was a place for me to be. So I was like, oh, I need to be a professional athlete. Well, I'm 5'3", 150 pounds. I'm not sure what sport I think I'm going to play professionally, you know? So that was that was out of the box. But I think if we start with the intersectionality as young as possible and as many things as possible, then these conversations won't have to be the uncomfortable conversations. They'll just be a daily conversation of seeing things. I mean, now you see commercials with there are more interracial couples on commercials. There are LGBTQ couples on commercials, and like I think I'll just leave with this, but like Schitt's Creek, like they never mentioned anything about like LGBTQ or anything. They just lived their lives, and but they brought it up the way, and it was never brought up like, oh my God, you must be this, you must be that. No, it's like when you bring people up a certain way, the right way, then you don't have to worry about when they become to high school what group are they going to be in, because
Mhm.
everyone be in the same group, and understand that this isn't Mean Girls. Like I don't have to go sit at the table with the jocks or the black people or the arts people. Like I'm gonna go sit at the table with whoever I want to go sit at the table with, and that's what I love about the upcoming generations. Mean Girls was when I was in high school. Now
Yeah.
I go and mentor elementary schools, and I go into their cafeteria, and it is I I'm like, where are the groups? Like they are so diverse because they don't think about what we had to live through as kids. They love each other for who they are, and that's why I when I see commercials of like little kids hugging, and then one of them grow up to be like a bad person. Well, they learned that growing up. They wasn't born that way. So I think it's very important, especially I mean intersectionality. That's why I say it is one of my most like things that I'm very passionate about, because not only do I want to represent everything that I am, but I want to represent it correctly, and I also want people to accept me for who I am and not what I am.
I don't know how to go on with that. It seems like you're dropping the mic and ending the show directly, right? But I have to. I have a few more questions to ask. What is the most important step leaders can take in 2021 to address inequities in the workplace? And I'll start with you, Greg.
Listen, I am a huge proponent for coaching. Like,
Mm,
I think there
yeah.
needs to be a sense of humility from our leaders,
Mm-hmm.
executives, even in my own company I work with, and
Mm-hmm.
other companies that I consult with. I think leaders need to move to understand that they're leaders in their particular function area, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not leaders necessarily in people and how to navigate this stuff, right? So I think there needs to be some coaching that leaders need to take and say, hey, I need some help, right? I need to work on this thing, right? And really put the time to do the work, right?
And
Because if they
hire the right people.
and
I'm
hire the
not,
right
I'm
people
not
and manage the right way and lead the right way, because if
yeah.
they don't, all it's doing is
Yeah.
failing the institution. All it's doing is preventing their company from being able to grow. It's putting a bad taste in people's mouth, and people talk, and so people will know not to come and work for your organization and company. You know, there was a mentor of mine years ago who would share with me that, hey, oftentimes we would have employees come to our organization and we would train them up so they can work for somewhere else. Not so that they can grow within, not so that they can matriculate through. No, we bring them in just so we can prepare them so they can leave, because right here is so toxic for them. If we did some coaching and understood how to navigate these things, employees would be happier, employees would stay longer, the company would further advance farther along. So I would encourage anyone, leader, execs, directors, managers, whomever, get you some coaching.
Get some coaching and also assist yourself with doing the work, because some people do feel challenged addressing these topics and know that there are DEI consultants out there. I'm not naming them, but there are some here at the table, just saying, that can support you in certain conversations or certain things that you want to address. Because know that I'm not challenging you to know it all, but I am challenging you to do better. That's it. I am challenging you to do better. So, Julie.
Reverse mentoring. Now that I use the generation lens, when you work with the younger generation, especially Gen Z, who are born after mid-1990s, for early 20s, digital native. So they lived sort of the whole life in sort of the digital friendly environment, but they also prefer face-to-face discussion, the studies show. So why don't we listen to, I'm sort of in middle age, in between baby boomers and then Gen Z.
Why are you calling me? Please, so stop it.
In between. So I catch myself always kind of sort of translating what the baby boomers say to Gen Z. Like the baby boomers looking for the latest PowerPoint, and Gen's like, why don't we just use Google Slide?
Exactly.
And then the baby boomer was like, oh, what's that? What do you mean? We need to track changes. Like, dude, we can do that. We don't need to track it. Like, technology tracks it. I mean, so why don't we listen to, like, it's not that the younger generation is right all the time. That's not what I'm saying, but they're the future. They're going to create the future. So it's worth listening to them, what they're thinking, what they think the future is going to look like. And, they can tell us a lot of things, and we can learn, and we can also teach them.
Yeah. I see reverse mentoring as a, how do you say, a way to give back, but also for you to soak in all their knowledge as well. So I would rather say traditional mentoring combined with reverse mentoring, whereas you're learning from each other. Exactly. So that you're getting the best of both worlds as well.
Yeah, because I feel like traditional coaching is more of the seasonal professionals talk to the young professionals what the rules are and things like what that we've tried and then succeeded and failed. But I think we can be a little bit open. For example, redefining workplace. We used to be like a fancy building, a nice coffee machine, and then young professionals passive learned how the executives, how they talk and do the presentation. But that's not happening now. So how do we deliver? How do we deliver the things that we kind of can't have now to the younger generation? So I think it's a good time to open up that discussion.
Love it. Thank you. John.
Yeah, step one, a culture mind shift that organizations need to realize and put people over profits. The profits will follow as long as you're putting your people first. The second step, and this may be crazy, I know it's insane, listen to your people. Take the time to listen, find out what they're asking for, what they need. I know it's insane, right? And then not only, say what you're going to do, but then do it.
Walking the talk. Yes.
Start putting some actions behind it. I love seeing these CEO statements and these pledges of diversity. Fantastic first step. Now, what are you going to do? How are you going to show up every single day for your employees?
Yes. Let me tweak that last one, because that last one needs some tweaking, a little bit adjustment. I want to see your 6-month commitment. I want to see your year commitment. Not just put it on the wall as in this year, this is my mover for diversity and this is what I'm going to do. Make it actionable. I want to see action. So what are you going to do in the next 6 months? And if that is just one step, that's totally fine. But be transparent, especially towards your people, so that they know that you and they are working towards that goal. Yeah. Right?
And follow through. What kind of accountability is there going to be if you're not hitting that metric that you set for yourself?
True. Gerald.
Yes, I think one of the, on top of the reverse mentoring coaching, I think those are great. I think a lot of leaders also need to find their humility. I think there needs to be a connection between the entry-level associates and the board. I feel right now, a lot of companies, they have the board and then they have everyone else. When you become a board member, that doesn't make you into a robot. You're still a human. And to use the topic of the conversation, humanize the workplace, humanize the board of directors. Like, don't be afraid to talk to people. There's one thing that we've all felt alike, and that's what it feels like to be an outsider. Like, and it doesn't matter, like everyone, like even if you're a man in a group of all women, myself in a group of anyone that it's not myself, but have that conversation with your people so they can have that connection. Because until you have that on interviews, you say, what is a leader? People are going to explain a unicorn because a leader has to be perfect. They have to do this and do that. No, a leader needs to be humble. They need to be able to admit failure. They have to be okay with not being okay. And those are the things that the Gen Zs, that's what they are looking for. I was talking to a friend, and a Gen Z came to an interview, and before the interview even started, she said, explain this. And it was a picture of their board, which was like all white men, and she was like, explain this before the interview. There is no way in the world I would have did that on an interview when I was looking for a job. But that's what we have to adapt to and
I love
understand. That's
that.
the evolution of the
I love
workplace.
that.
Is yeah, I mean the force and the passion, like whatever that we're all showing here, that's the passion that the workforce is going to have. And if you want to retain the top talent, instead of saying, oh, let's go find the top talent, you have the top talent, just grow it from within. It's there. You don't need to go find what's already in your house. So I think the connection between board and entry level, the gap needs to shut down. I mean, you need to be able to talk to people just like you're at a board meeting talking to them. And granted, you're not going to use the same language. I understand that. But I want a leader to get onto a video conference with their company and be like, I just want to have a conversation with y'all about this one time when I failed, and this is how it made me stronger. That is going to connect to so many more people than putting out statements of we're against this. We know you're going to say, who's going to say they're for racism? I mean, come on. Everyone know you're going to say we're against it, but tell me how you personally are against it and what you're doing to help yourself out. Because a lot of people, they say, I want to help you. Well, you need to help you first. Like, so before
You
I
need to
started
start
this
by yourself first.
DEI
Yeah.
journey,
Yeah.
I started reading about myself, my own biases to understand what's wrong with me. And then now I feel like I can go and help other people. Leaders, you just can't say, oh, I'm on a board, let me go help you. No, like Greg said, you don't just have this, it just doesn't come to you because you become a board member. Like, actually go do the work to make yourself better so you can grow better people. And that's where we divide the managers from the leaders, because managers manage projects and programs, leaders lead people. And tomorrow, everyone wants to work for a leader, because the people that work for you, they're going to make sure the programs and projects are doing what they need to do if you're leading the people correctly.
I want to add something on that. I believe in self-leaders. I
Oh, for
want you
sure.
to think that you are the leader of tomorrow, of today, by leading yourself first. That's what I want to challenge people with.
I
Can I?
completely agree with that.
Thank you. Can I? I could talk for hours. I know the time is, we are almost ending, but I want to end with this question, and I'll start with Greg. What is your wish for 2025 when it comes to humanizing the workplace and intersectionality? What do you wish to see?
Man, that's a heavy one. There's so
I
much.
know.
There's so much, but I would love to see. Um, I would love to see where this is not reactionary, right? But that this is relevant, right? To where this is something that becomes the forethought, and this is something that becomes it moves from it becomes normal, right? This is normal to have these conversations, right? We're not teaching you how to have the conversations.
Yeah.
Having the conversations are part of your DNA, of your company, of your organization. You're not performative, right? By 2025, that's 4 years from now. I want to see the commitments you made today lived in that moment, right? I want to see you on the second phase of your DEI strategic plan. I want to see you, hey, you talking about you want to have these number of Black employees or minority employees. You talk about wanting to do this, that, and the third. I want to see it. So at that time, I want to see it become normalized. I want to see the conversations be at the forethought. I don't want to see a reactionary organization. I want to see a culturally relevant and responsive organization. That's what I want.
It makes me think about, keeping up an Excel form. I'm just simple, or something, a dashboard where we keep track of all these I know there are a lot of companies that are doing something. So hey, I'm just spreading an idea. If somebody already has something similar like that, we need to keep track of these commitments that companies are making, and definitely the commitments that they are making regarding, towards 2025. By 2025, the board is diverse, etc. Because I've been seeing a lot of these commitments, and I want to keep track of them somewhere. So if there is a genius out there who's already doing that, I applaud you. Connect it with me or share it with us so that we can hold the companies accountable as well. John.
Yeah, by 2025, I want to see all leadership have skin in the game. I want to see accountability around specific metrics, and like to Greg's point, that we're not being performative, that we're not being reactionary, that the work that we do in the D&I space, anti-racism, intersectionality, everything, it lives and breathes within the organization's culture, and that as DEI specialists or managers or directors, our job, maybe we work ourselves out of a job because it becomes that ingrained in how businesses operate.
I'm talking about 4 years, eh?
Hey, you know what? Goals, but that's the vision that I would love to see by 2025. Is that at the very least, to Greg's point, we're on the next phase. We stop being reactionary. We stop having these conversations out of necessity, but because it's part of the culture, and that we're teaching people, how to participate in these conversations. Not, we have to have them because X, and X happened.
I love it. And Gerald.
Yeah, I completely agree with Greg and John. I would love to see, again, 2025, 4 years. That's I think a very short time for what I would like to see. But I think, again, seeing the next phase of what companies want, seeing how they meet the metrics, and when they don't meet the metrics, they should have at least an explanation as to why, which I think a big part of it is the continuous search for top talent instead of growing it in, because Greg mentioned to a point where companies meet their diversity measure, and it's like, oh, we're good for the year, we'll do it again next year. But then 50 of those diverse employees that came in, 30 of them go out the back door within 2 years. So really, have you done anything? So I think I wanted to become part of the culture. Like John said, actually, when I first started thinking about DE&I journey, it's like, no one should be in this job for 20 years. Like, it should be a 5-year job. You should go in, go out, and then come back and consult and coach to make sure that everything's going on. But like, to just be able to help people and understand, and people not be afraid to talk to someone that doesn't look like them. I mean, we should be over there. It's 2020, so we shouldn't have to wait till 2025 for that to happen. And again, just humanizing the workplace that you mentioned, intersectionality is very important.
Thank you. And Julie?
Well, 4 years. I hope this discussion can we can learn from the LGBTIQ plus inclusion. Like, business case, proven over and over, many studies, it makes business sense to be more inclusive for LGBTIQ plus and marginalized group of people. So my hope is that when it comes to intersectionality and representation discussion, my hope is that we can skip this business case and we can just say this is the right thing to do because it's already proven with different studies, and just get to it. I want to see the systematic changes, for example, in HR, hiring, training, promotion, and retention, and valuable employees. Just do it and make systematic change to be the level, free, the fair, level field place for all the candidates, for example. So what I don't want to see is that to intersectionality to disappear just like a buzzword or something. This is still, it requires continuous effort, conscious effort, and we unfortunately still may be talking about it, but want to see some systematic changes as well.
Yeah, I want to see more accountability, more and more. Have a platform. I was thinking about that platform, and now I'm just like, if there are any tech leaders out there or gurus who are, you know, they are sharing or at least documenting what company X is sharing or what BlackRock is sharing, what Nasdaq is sharing, so that we can cheer the companies that are doing their best or doing the work, so that we can cheer, so that the other, you know, the other companies will follow their lead. We have to start somewhere, and we have to do better. That's it. My son is 7, and I don't want to have this conversation when he is starting in the workplace or become his own manager or become his own boss. I don't want this. So that's why I am doing my utmost best to move the needle faster, sooner, better. That's it. That's it. I'm seeing a lot of comments in right now. So Stella is sharing great and important conversation. I want to share a quote by the amazing Audre Lorde with all of you regarding the importance of intersectionality. There is no thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live in a single issue lives. Yay! Thank you, Stella. And Maxine is sharing, keep these companies accountable, and radical inclusion is so important. Thank you, Maxine. And I don't know who this is, but thank you for sharing. +1, boot the business case for DEI. I enjoyed this conversation. And again, I was just like, okay, is it done already? I really love what you shared. And I'm hoping that, you know, we inspired self leaders, the leaders of tomorrow or the leaders of today, to really care about intersectionality and to move beyond the needle. So thank you, Julie. Thank you, John. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Gerald, for sharing your wisdom. And I want to show up my screen. For next week, I cannot share the topic for next week yet, but however, I do want to thank you all for watching and for participating. And if you want to listen back to the podcast, wait until a few days, and then you can listen back to the replay or watch the replay on YouTube at any given time. I am doing my best to have these conversations because we need to address these topics and we need to raise awareness. And again, my son is my main reason, but I'm also doing it for the next generation and for this generation to create that better culture. So thank you all for watching, and until next time, bye everybody. Don't go yet.